Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Unfiltered Tales Season 5, Episode 9. Tonight we bring in, another world-renowned author, solo traveler, Miss Danika DeWalt Smith. How you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, but before we get started, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. You've introduced me as an author. Also been in the performing arts and dance world for a very long time, which is sort of part of my book. But yeah, world traveler. I started traveling solo back in 2016. My first trip
Mhm.
alone was to South Africa, but I was meeting up with some volunteers there. But it was the first time I left home totally by myself. And since then, traveled a bunch through South and Central America, through Europe, through Asia, and the Middle East. And
Mhm.
yeah, most recently, I was living in Kurdistan for a few years, which is when I had the chance to finish uh, publishing my book, which just came out in March. And for the time being, sort of based in Toronto, I work on book number two, as well as looking to teach dance again. So that's a bit about me.
Oh no, well, so what inspired you to say, okay, I'm just gonna be what inspired you to start traveling solo?
It was just based out of a curiosity. I think, I mean, maybe it's part of having parents that were not born in Canada as well. And,
Okay.
I didn't do too much traveling when I was a kid. My mom took me to Portugal a few times, just smaller trips with my parents. But I think maybe I had like this deep curiosity to see like other parts of the world that were very like foreign to me. And given that said too, like
Okay.
I definitely feel like I'm the kind of person that like thrives off of culture shock. Even like from the beginning, it was definitely something that I loved the feeling of just being somewhere that was like
Right.
almost confusing to me, and trying to figure it out. Um, yeah, so it was definitely based off of like this deep curiosity to see how things work in places that are very foreign.
Okay. Because
Mhm.
I have you down, as far as like along the way you wrestled with doubts. You confronted your fears, and things like
Yeah,
that. It was like it was your personal story from you to break expectations.
definitely. So that's a separate kind of story. I definitely wanted to travel and see places, but what sort of came as like a product of putting myself out and say, these foreign places are really new to me, allowed me to what I sort of say like shut out the noise from society and pressures back home and sort of loop me back into the person that I felt like I really was and that I sort of shut out from for a very long time. Um, so I know I said I was in dance for a very long time, but what I didn't say I actually, when after I graduated from high school, I went to study sciences in university because I
Hmm.
thought it was like the safe thing to do.
Hmm.
Um, and then, 4 years, 5 years later, I kind of felt like this emptiness, and the path that I thought I should have been taking just kind of felt like not what I really, really, really wanted.
Hmm.
And so after I didn't get into vet school, which was sort of ended up being like my plan post university,
Hmm.
I instead of trying again, I just left for a whole year, which is what my book is about. And that
Okay.
is basically confronting the doubt of, you know, who can I be? Who do I want to be?
Hmm.
Um, how can I get there?
Right.
These were like the questions that I was figuring out throughout that year. And I definitely think that being alone and traveling in places where you are sort of like overwhelmed by all this foreign culture, people, environments, it really helps you bring into perspective what it is you are
Right.
in
So
many different ways. Yeah.
so what expectations, I mean, you said you did the college route, that was a safe thing to do, but
hmm
what type of expectations were they putting on you to do?
Well, so for me, the two major expectations or pressures I felt were one mostly from society.
Hmm.
you know, go get a good job, get a house, get the mortgage, get the husband, get the kids, get the whatever, the sort of
Right.
like, if you want to put like American dream, I guess, would
Hmm.
be one way to explain it. And the other pressure was sort of what friends were doing, what
Hmm.
my mom felt like was a good idea. Um,
Okay.
Love my mother. We have a great relationship, but she's very more of a like A type personality that plans everything.
So
To
what did
her,
she do? What was the pressure from? What does she does?
right.
That could be the
So,
pressure.
yeah, I kind of sum it up. The pressure is like having the 5-year plan and having this solid career, and having like backup plans B and C if needed,
Okay.
which I didn't really have.
Right. I understand that.
I
You're
had a plan
18.
A.
You're 18.
Yeah,
You're 19. You don't have a plan.
right. But there was so much like, well, you got to do something. And if
Hmm.
that something doesn't work, what are you going to do instead? And if that something else doesn't work, what are you going to do instead?
Right.
So, yeah, and it's funny because I don't think, even I write about it. The subtitle of my book is Ditching My Mother's 5-Year Plan. And
Right.
that's sort of the example I give because it makes a lot of sense that way. But it's not even about what she said or what she did. It's all about how I internalized all these sort of baby pressures, let's say, or like
Hmm.
small commentary about like what other people were doing. This is something you could
Right.
do. And I thought, oh, is it? You know, it's, I think, especially in today's world, like back, those few years ago, even so
Hmm.
much has changed. But the pressures that we see, kids using social media, for example, like there's a lot of pressures that they don't even realize is happening.
Hmm.
But it really like affects how they view themselves and how they end up behaving and acting and decisions they make. So I think for me, I really internalized a lot of these, what my peers, what my parents sort of thought were like the good things to do, and really, really putting it on myself in forms of guilt and shame and, pressure.
Right. Right. So once you decided to do what you do, what did they think?
Well, because part of my decision was traveling a lot,
Hmm.
that one of the first things was like a fear and a worry.
Okay.
Um, there's been a few instances that I really like kind of terrified my parents,
Mm.
not on purpose.
I understand.
Yeah, there was one time when I was in Nepal and I ended up losing connection for like a few days. Um, and they thought that I had, some, like the worst, I got kidnapped or something, who knows what they thought. And then my dad said he was like, one afternoon away from booking a ticket to just showing up in Nepal and doing God knows what. I'm not sure what he would have done, like walked around Kathmandu and asked people if they'd seen my face.
Oh
But
shit. He
yeah,
was on
so
some Liam Nielsen shit. I'm
yeah,
taking. I'm gonna show up and just do what I need to
for
do.
real, for real. They were so. I remember when I was on a bus and it stopped on the road and I got out like a bathroom stop and my phone finally like got connection
Right.
and my phone was like a ping pong ball machine. Like it was just going off and like, the amount of missed
Mm.
calls from both my dad and my mom and then, yeah, all the messages. And then I was like, okay, let's not panic everyone. Like I'm good. So instances
Right.
like that, which now I try to plan a little bit better anytime I go off grid,
Okay.
just in case.
I get you.
So yeah. So in terms of like how my parents felt about it, like there's definitely like a worry because I was going far away. Um, and the other, I think that would be the main one. It's funny because I think a lot of like my fears and pressures was all sort of a lot. I ended
Okay.
up sort of putting on myself. I didn't need to be doing that because
Right.
once I had, started doing my thing, my parents was like, "Oh, actually, you know what? Like, I'm kind of proud of you. I wish I had done more traveling when I was younger, or I wish I had gotten to do A, B, or C. So after I sort of got into that groove, they're like, "Oh, this is what you want. That's okay." Um, I think that's how things often end up happening.
Yeah.
You just like you figure it out and it ends up being what's right for you, and no one's gonna judge you for that in the end, or they shouldn't if they're important people in your life that are worth your time.
Correct. But that was my next question was like,
Mm.
have you ever felt safe? Have you ever felt scared or unsafe while traveling? I mean, but that was coming from your parental side. So has there any been things that you done just like this is not safe? Like for example, like a lot of women don't like to take cruises solo because
Hmm.
a lot of stuff happens on them boats, as far as like uh men may not be able to understand no or things of that nature. So has there ever been any time that you were scared or you felt safe while you felt unsafe while you were traveling solo, and how did you handle it?
Yeah, I mean, sure. It's funny. I haven't read anything about cruise ships, probably because I don't look at cruise ships. I've never been on a cruise. It's not
Right.
something that sort of appeals to me. So it's actually interesting you mentioned that. And now that you say it, that kind of makes a lot of sense. Um, so that's something I'm going to look into. But
Okay.
for sure, yeah, there's been a few instances that were pretty sketchy. Um, I've had probably like one of the worst things that could happen to a girl has happened to me. So, did I handle things well? I'm not so sure how to answer that question, but there
Well, what
have been
happened? You
times.
didn't explain what happened. You just said
Yeah, no.
something happened,
Yeah,
but I'm
yeah.
not telling you what happened.
So I've had minor things where like guys are trying to take advantage. Like I've
Okay.
had uh I did a lot of work away volunteer
Right.
things. So whereas I would stay with like a local family or person and help them out for a few hours a day in exchange, get free room or board and sometimes food.
Okay.
You can look it up. There's HelpX, Workaway, Woofing is a popular one, work on farms. Anyways, so I did that a few times, and there was luckily only one where I had like a pretty sketchy host where they sort of tried to like assault, sexually assault me, and
Oh
I kind of
wow.
luckily in that situation, I was you know sane mind, like no influences, and so I was able to like push them away and like put up a boundary and was successful in doing that. But I had another instance where I was staying with someone who invited me to stay at their place. It was like a traveler that I'd met in a city,
Hmm.
and they ended up inviting me to stay with them. I didn't think much of it because I had stayed with tons of people by that point.
Right.
Um, but I will say, like, the one mistake that I made in staying with that person was that I had like that gut feeling where I was like, I don't really feel good. I don't know why,
Right.
but I feel like something's just not right.
Hmm.
Um, and so I dismissed that feeling. Sorry, I should explain this better. I dismissed that feeling too because I had met other people
Hmm.
in the town where we met that had also stayed with him. So
Right.
I was like, "Well, I mean, that girl stayed with him. This couple stayed with him. I mean, like, whatever." It was
Hmm.
someone that hosted like a lot of couch surfers,
Right.
which I'd done a few times too while I was in Europe. But in any case, so I ended up going to stay with him, and the it's hard for me to explain this because I don't remember everything,
Right.
but essentially went out at night, had drinks and stuff, and then I had like a hazy memory and then like waking up like on my face, naked in a
Mhm.
bed and,
Wow.
getting sexually assaulted. So
Sorry to hear that.
it's okay. Because it happens to a lot of people and after publishing my book, I've realized that it happens to too many and a lot of people don't talk about it. I feel like it's weird because in this day and age, there's been a lot of like the Me Too movement, everything else that, it is something that people talk about.
Mhm.
But I think there's still so many of us that
Right.
don't really share our stories still. Um, and I think that can be, shame
Mhm.
mostly. It used to be a hard thing for me to talk about. It's getting a lot easier, especially having written about it. I think for me, that was a big part of like acceptance and
Mhm.
realizing that, you know, maybe I should have done things differently, but I didn't. And that doesn't make me a failure, right? Or that doesn't make me like stupid or I don't know. I'm trying to think of the other words I would have used to describe myself at the time. Um, but yeah, that was definitely like the most dangerous feeling situation, I would say.
So after all that
Um,
occurred, did you ever speak to him after that?
no, what ended up happening was the next morning,
Mhm.
or when I was sort of like fully like aware, sober, because from what I would assume, though I didn't like get any drug testing soon
Okay.
enough to be able to know. But I assume that there was something in my drink put in it or something, because there's no way, like I said to you before, like there's been other instances where like I can fight
Right.
myself like out of a situation, or at least try. So the fact that I
Okay.
didn't try was like a big clue into me. Like it took me a few days actually to really think about it, because at first you're
Mhm.
in like the state of shock. But after a few days, I was like, no, man, this ain't right. Like, how is
Right.
it that I could push these people away from me, but I wasn't able to do anything there? It just doesn't make sense. So when I came to in the morning and I was, aware of what had happened, I was like, oh, shit, I need to get out of here.
Right.
And I think this is again like part of like the shame thing. You think like, what's the safest way? What's the quickest way for me to get out? And I was like, I'm gonna pretend like I don't know anything, like I don't know what happened. I'm gonna pack up my stuff and I'm gonna get the hell out as soon as I can. And so that's
Okay.
what I did. I basically like left and like said bye and walked out the door.
Mm.
I didn't hear anything from him for like a few days. And then I got a random message like days later. At that point, I had made a friend, a traveler girl who I was able to confide in a little bit, and she helped me out a lot. But I didn't respond to any messages. I just like blocked everything.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what happened with that, and that's pretty much all I did. I didn't report anything at that point because I had left
Right.
the city as well. So
Okay.
there was no way. I think it's a bit different too when you're traveling alone by yourself. Like who you don't really have the kind of support system I think in place to feel like you can, stay in the city and then like report and like do all like there's a lot of stuff that would have been nice to do,
Right.
um, but I just couldn't, like, I I left.
Right.
I got fastest train to the bus station, and I was like, "Whatever ticket is going to some other city fastest, that's the one I'm taking." That was it.
I understand.
So, yeah.
I understand it. So, would you say, like, when you do this solo traveling, you go to these places and however
Mhm.
long you stay, like, do you adjust your behavior or like, or your dress or like to fit into these local cultures to stay safe?
Yeah, that's something I do like to write about often as well. Not so much in my book, but
Right.
definitely like in my blogs and stuff I've written about in the past. So for starters, like I said, the number one lesson that I tell people as far as like safety is like trust your gut, because that is the number one self defense mechanism that we have. And it does tend to, like, we try to override it naturally, which is a
Hmm.
bad thing. Obviously, I did that, and there are many other examples. You can research this. There's a really good book called The Gift of Fear that talks about that as well.
Hmm.
So, in any case, that's the number one thing that I always suggest. Uh, I try to organize arrivals or departures from cities, whether that's by bus or plane, whatever, in the daytime.
Hmm.
It's more comfortable, you know. It's usually busier with like families traveling, women, children, whatever. Um, Whenever I'm in public transit, and actually, I do tend to suggest public transport over
Right.
taxis a lot.
Okay.
Taxis kind of give me the jeebies. And I think, I mean, we can make most sense that you're alone in a car. Most often is a male driver, right?
Right. Right.
So for me, especially if I don't know so much background about, like, some taxis in countries are very much like uh, illegitimate. They're like random people driving cars, whereas like in
Hmm.
some cities they're like regulated.
Right.
So there's that aspect that like maybe I don't know if it's an actual taxi or not. And even still, even if it is like a legitimate taxi, like, someone can make a decision at any point to like, today's your day. Like, I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
So things happen. So for me, I'd much rather take a bus or something where I can sit beside another woman, or, a group of people that there's going to be support in some way. So I definitely vote for public transit if possible.
Okay.
Um, as far as dressing, I would say, I mean, I guess I do tend to err on the side of more conservative,
Right.
but more so if I'm just starting out in a place too. Like, it's I think once you get the hang of like what's the normal and wherever
Hmm.
you're going, then you can kind of adjust and do as you want.
Hmm.
Um, but culturally too, that's something you want to consider. Um, when I first went to India, I wasn't rocking up and wearing shorts everywhere.
Okay.
After a while, when I was there for like, a month and a half, and then my friends were like, "Yeah, you can wear shorts out to the market. You're gonna be okay." I'm like, "Okay." As I was living with two local guys there, and they're like, "Don't worry about it. It's fine."
Mm,
So, like I said, are on the side of like caution at
right.
first, at least, until you can kind of get your bearings. Ask people that are local; they can always help you out. They're also a good people to go to figure out, what are good areas and bad areas to be in the city.
Mm,
That's something that, I mean, it's good to research
it's
that
good to know.
beforehand too. But as you said, you can always, when you arrive at a hotel or something, you can ask staff. You're like, "Hey, there's some areas that you think are not really safe for me to walk around by myself." People will know because they know the area, right?
Right. 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 So,
Yeah.
do you ever feel like homesick or anything like that when you go to
Mm.
these places? Like, do you miss home?
I never felt homesick until sort of more recently.
Hmm.
I feel homesick. Actually, I shouldn't even say that. I did feel homesick sometimes.
Okay.
Homesickness comes in moments where you're literally sick.
Mm,
So, like when you're actually like, say you have like a flu or something. There were some times where I had
right.
some infections or just sick. You don't want to be somewhere that's like everything's new and stuff when you're feeling off. Definitely, there's that. Um, Whenever things happen at home, if it's like, someone's getting married or, there's some sort of big event that happens, like I get that homesickness too. Whenever I
Hmm.
miss things like that. Mm, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up. Like I do miss family, but there is always, you know, video calls and stuff that make that adjustment a little bit easier. I think had I been traveling years ago,
Right.
then maybe it would have been different. I think now it's not that hard, for me at least. I still miss home in some ways, but
Okay.
that generally happens when I feel like I'm missing something that's happening, like an event.
I
So,
understand that.
mhm.
So, while you solo traveling, like what I guess I would say you said video apps. So what like apps do you swear by since you're on the go so
Hmm.
much?
I'd say, I mean, in terms of keeping in contact with
Yes,
people,
keeping in contact with some you say.
sure. Is WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger. I mean, a lot of people are on like Instagram and they'll message there, but I kind of I keep my notifications off for Instagram because I try not to go on and scroll. So
Right.
people know that if they actually want to get a hold of me, they'll like message me directly on like those two other things. Yeah. So mostly those, because obviously, like if I'm going to new places, like my phone number's changing, getting new SIM cards, whatever. So like
Right.
WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger are kind of like the easier ones to use.
Okay. Okay, so what kind of legacy or impact do you want to leave, your journey to leave? Like even just on yourself, like what type of impact do you want to leave?
For me, like the kind of the main reason why I wanted to make the book was to encourage people to not be afraid
Hmm.
to do what they want, and also, yeah, not to be afraid of discomfort and to accept who they are by shutting out the noise, I guess. I think that's the basis. I mean, I talked about that in the beginning, but I think a lot of the times fear is something that holds us back in
Okay.
different ways. I mean, for me, it was, dancing or writing and traveling. For other people, it could be something totally different. But fear of judgment, fear
Hmm.
of failure, fear of, yeah, I'd say probably those two things are probably what holds us back the most often. And once we can sort of shut that out,
Right.
we can really figure out what is meaningful to us. So that's sort of the message that I try and inspire in readers who read my book or. post everything else.
Well, we're gonna read your book. One
Okay.
year and a one-way ticket, ditching my mother's 5-year plan to travel solo, a memoir. So you have this on your website. What
Mhm.
happens when dancers become backpackers?
Oh, yeah, that's a fun excerpt that I shared.
You were in Vietnam?
Yeah, yeah. So at that point, actually, it was a good friend of mine. She went to high school with me, so she
Okay.
like danced with me and stuff while I was um, in a performing program there. And hadn't seen her for a few years. She was living in Vancouver. She came. She's like, I want to do a trip somewhere in Asia. Where should we go? I was like, up to you. You choose, and I will meet you. Um, so pretty much,
Okay.
yeah, she's like, okay, I want to go to Vietnam. I was like, no problem. Let me know when you're going to be there, and I'll book a ticket. So we spent 3 weeks together, traveling from the south to the north. And so that scene that I share is from, sorry, Hoi An.
Okay.
It's kind of like a little tourist town that's nice, old Chinese architecture by the river. There's lots of like food stalls and markets and things like that. There's this cool lantern ceremony that happens there with like paper lanterns and they let them float away. Anyways, it's a cute thing. But the point of the excerpt is actually not to do with that, less to do with Hoi An and more so us like being our dancer selves.
Hmm.
So what happens in the scene is we're at this hostel bar, we're having
Hmm.
drinks, we're hanging out with people,
Said you at a
and
hostel? You at a hostel?
at a hostel, yeah. So a lot of
Oh,
times we stayed at youth hostels, yeah.
I've seen two. I've seen all three of them. The movie Hostel. But go ahead, continue your story.
I know, but I've never had any bad experience in a hostel, and I've stayed at I don't know how many. So,
Okay,
anyways, I'm the kind of person that tries not to like take in too much news like that. Anyways,
I got you.
so we're at this like a party, I guess, with other travelers. It starts pouring rain, so now everyone's
Hmm.
huddled beneath this like awning, and then all of a sudden, on the stereo starts playing "It's Raining Men" by the Weather Girls,
Okay, by
the
the way, the
song.
girls.
Uh-huh. And so I wasn't even looking at my friend. And the next thing I know, I turn around and she's up out of her seat and she's dancing in the rain. And like, keep in mind, we're like, I'm a more ballet dancer by foundation.
Right.
She was more into jazz dance, whatever. She starts doing like a full on jazz routine. And I'm like,
Oh wow.
all right, that's what we're doing. I get up, I bring a chair in to use as a prop, and we start dancing like we're doing like jetés across the pavement. It's
Um.
pouring rain. We're soaked. And we
Wow.
finished at the end of the song, and like everyone in the bar, they just started clapping. They were like, "Oh wow, I guess we just did that." So that's what the scene is that I share in there. So it's kind of the point of sharing that scene was to amplify that you can sort of be different not personalities, but different parts of yourselves can be sort of like different, and they
Uh-huh.
can converge as one. So for me, you know, part of one of these themes was coming back and bringing dance into my life.
Right.
And so that scene is sort of like is an example of how I can be a dancer, I can be a traveler, I can be different things, and that's okay, even if they don't necessarily like match. So that's why I say backpackers become dancers,
I got you. I
vice
got you.
versa. Hmm.
So, last question.
Hmm.
How has solo travel shaped your identity as a woman?
Oh, hmm. That is such. No one has ever asked me that.
Uh, Hey, you want unfiltered tales, so you
I
might get asked
do.
anything. I might say, hey,
Okay.
listen,
No, I love
reenact
it.
the I might say reenact the dance scene right now. You never know what may happen on this show.
No, that's all good. I'm only saying that because it's a really interesting question. So I might need a second here to think about
That's
that.
fine.
But I think it's giving me it's given me like a greater sense of confidence,
Hmm.
even though, like I said, I've had some crappy things happen to me. It
Right.
showed me how resilient I am,
Hmm.
how strong, how confident I can be, and it's shown me that it's okay. Like that scene, it's okay to have all these different parts of you, um, that maybe seem unrelated, but they can all be true to yourself, and that's okay. So I guess it's having an acceptance. So really accepting who I am is what travel gave to me.
Okay, I get you. So, a 1 year one way ticket. Where
Yeah.
can it be bought at? Is it
Yeah, you can purchase it on Amazon, on Indigo, Barnes and Nobles, basically all the big retailers. I think on Walmart too. I'm trying to think. Oh, bookshop.org. You can also order one directly from me.
Right.
So if
You
you
have
want a
a
signed copy,
website.
I do try and yeah, if you go on my website,
Right.
well, actually, it's a landing page. It won't come up on the main one. I should change that.
Mm,
But
okay.
basically, through my socials, it's sort of a landing page that you can access from there.
All right.
But if anyone wants a signed copy, they can always reach me directly, send me a DM anywhere. I'll answer. And yeah, that's how you can get a book.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you listened to the show before you came on. This is like viewers' favorite part of the show. I don't know why I had I be damn up for the whole show when it's supposed to be unfiltered tale, but I don't know. So it's coming to us today. It say I came home from work and my house was burglarized. TVs, laptops, my son PlayStation gaming system, and my doorbell camera were all gone. My boyfriend was in the music studio doing the break-in, and we figured the burglars were nearby. Someone was watching my home and knew where we were all out. My boyfriend made an angry Facebook post about it, and my son's father promised to replace the PlayStation gaming system. When the police arrived, we made a report. One cop said a burglar would not take that much care to remove a TV from the mount. He'd just rip it off the wall, he added. This
Mhm.
thief took his time removing the TV because he knew he wouldn't be interrupted. He probably lives here. The cops looked at my boyfriend. Management showed me security
Oh,
footage of my boyfriend
oh,
removing my stuff.
oh no.
He pawned everything to buy studio time to record his rap song. He promised to pay us back plus interest because the song is fire and he's going to get 1 million streams. He played the song and his dog shit. Should I press charges? I don't believe in snitching, but this so called rap career must be stopped for all humanity.
Wow.
This
There's
episode.
no way.
Yeah, shit is crazy. Yeah, he stole everything and pawned it to pay for studio time.
Damn. Mm-mm.
Right.
Wow.
So, and the song was not good. So that makes it even
Right.
worse.
I was gonna say that's almost like the worst of it, you know?
Yeah. The song is you stole from your girlfriend. The song is not good and you're going to
Mm-mm.
jail.
Damn. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for that interesting story.
Hey, we get one all the time every week. I just sit back and laugh. I'm at work
Love
getting
it.
these things and I'm just dying laughing on the phone. Like, what in the world is going on?
Wow.
But
It's a crazy world we live in.
yes, it definitely is a crazy world and we don't
People are
understand.
wild.
Yeah, they are definitely wild. You're not on. Are you back on the North American side, or you?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, okay, all right. We are just making sure. Yeah, it's crazy on this side right now
Mhm,
with
mhm.
everything that's going
For
on.
sure, for sure. Yeah, I'm back in Toronto for now, so
Okay, back in Toronto. So definitely, as she stated, as Danika said, what if a deflating setback became the greatest adventure of your life?
thank
1 year
you.
and a one-way ticket. It's out everywhere. Amazon, everywhere you can purchase a book. Is it on the Kindle?
Yeah, yeah, you can get Kindle version.
Okay, it's on the Kindle
Mhm.
version for people that is it audio book too? Is it
Not yet.
audio?
That's next on my list.
Oh, I was about to say because it's audio. People don't like to read, but yes,
Yeah,
go ahead and
so
download.
true.
Yeah, download your copy of Danica Smith's 1 year and a one-way ticket, the life of a solo female traveler. Thank you for coming on Unfiltered Tales,
Thank
and
you
you
so much.
always welcome to come back anytime you like it. It would especially be great if you could hit us up while you're definitely out.
Sorry, hit you up where?
Hit us up while you're out, like you're out and
Oh,
about,
while I'm
like you're
out somewhere.
traveling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's actually a good idea. I'll let you know next time I'm out somewhere.
All right.
Sounds good.
Well, people, the episode is concluded right here, but we got a special. I think we got a special one tomorrow because I just scheduled that tomorrow. So we'll be back tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock. But if you miss tomorrow, if you miss tonight, on Friday that it will be out on all streaming services, whether you have Spotify, Apple Podcasts, well, no, it closed down Google Podcasts, iHeart, everywhere you can find that. This will be out with, Miss Smith right here telling us about her book. And if you want to copy the book, get a copy of the book. Please go to Amazon or wherever books are sold, or you can go to a website which is scrolling across the bottom of the screen right now if you want a signed copy. That's where I'm going to get mine from. I need a signed
Sounds
copy.
good.
Yeah, and I have so many people books that have been on the show, so I feel like whenever you blow up, I can just show this
Yeah,
this
show the
this
sign
movie
run.
again. Like, yeah, I got it. So
Awesome.
see you guys tomorrow night.
Thanks so much.
All right.